Movie Age Presence, The Hole in the Ground. In the beginning of this story, we are shown Sarah, who is separated from her husband, so she shifts to the same town with her son. The house in which she is shifted is near the forest. Sarah is going in the car with her son, then an old woman appears in front of her car. Sarah stops her car to save the old woman. Then she comes out of her car. She sees an old woman standing in front of her. Sarah asks if she is okay, but she does not answer. Sarah's car window is broken, so she has to pick up her car window. She sees that old woman looking at her son again and again. Sarah gets scared of her, so she quickly sits back in her car and leaves. Now, Sarah comes to her new home with her son, where her son gets scared of the spider. Sarah takes the spider out of the glass. Sarah's son asks her why she didn't bring her father with her. If he was there, he would have killed the spider. And after that, he runs towards the jungle. Sarah runs towards him, calling out to her son. And when she enters the jungle, she sees a huge hole. She doesn't understand who made this hole. Before she sees the hole, her son comes from behind. After which, she comes back home with her son. At night, Sarah goes to a dinner party with her friends. Her friend tells her that the new town she has shifted to has a strange old lady living there. Actually, her friend is talking about that old lady who had come in front of Sarah's car. Her friend tells her that her son used to study in my class, but he was not allowed to meet her mother, that old woman. One day, that old woman came to school to pick up her son. After which, the school people threw her son out of school, because no one wanted that old woman to come back to school. After a few days, her son died. It is said that she killed her son in an accident. After hearing all this, Sarah gets scared, because that old woman was looking at her son very carefully. Now, when she was sleeping on her bed all night, she heard noises from outside. When she went downstairs and looked, the door was open. She looks at her son at home, but his son is not at home. This makes her scared. She takes the torch and goes outside. She thinks that her son has gone towards the forest. That's why she also starts moving towards the forest. And even after searching a lot, she doesn't find her son. Sarah comes back home, and when she calls the police, she hears a voice from behind. When she looks back, her son is there. But now her son is different. Next morning, when her son goes to school, she goes to her psychiatrist. Actually, she is in some depression because her husband abused her a lot. Then Sarah goes to her son's school. And when she was going to her house after picking up her son, she saw the same old woman again. She had her husband with her. Sarah got out of the car and met her husband. The old woman moved towards her car and started looking at her son from the outside. After which she said, "No, this is not your son." And she started hitting the glass of the window hard. Sarah got scared. The old woman's husband caught her. Sarah comes back home with her son. Sarah is convinced that there are many things that an old woman knows that no one else knows about. So she goes to meet that old woman the next day. But when she goes inside her house, she sees that someone has killed that old woman. Sarah has a lot of questions in her mind. So she goes to her house after the funeral of that old woman. She sees that all the mirrors in her house are covered with black clothes. And then she meets her husband. Her husband tells her that my wife had a special power. She would tell anyone what he had. My wife also told me about my son, that he is a bad soul. He has a shadow. She always said that he is not our son. Sarah asks how he died. The husband of the old woman says that he had an accident with his car, because of which he died. Sarah feels very strange because her friend told her that the old woman had killed her son. Sarah comes back home. She sees that her son's behavior is changing day by day. The food that he didn't like at all, now he is eating it very loudly. Sarah feels something wrong. Next morning, she walks to the same hole. There she finds a soldier toy, which belongs to her son. She comes home with the toy and tells her son that she had told him not to go near the pit in the jungle. But still he went there. Why? Hearing this, her son gets angry. The dining table in front of which he sits pushes the table towards Sarah very hard. Although, Sarah is saved. But she is shocked to see her son's power. Now at night, when Sarah is in her room, she hears a strange sound coming from her son's room. She goes to her son's room, and when she looks from under the door, she is shocked to see that her son is eating a spider, and her son's body is in a strange state. Sarah takes her son to the doctor the next morning. The doctor checks up on her son and tells Sarah that her son is completely normal. Sarah comes home with her son, but now she is convinced that whatever the old woman said is completely true. This child is not her son. The next day, Sarah goes to her son's school for a function where her son is performing with all the children, but Sarah sees that her son has no expressions on his face. She is looking at him. His voice is also very different. Sarah gets scared and runs away from there. But then her son's teacher comes along with her son. Sarah comes home with her son. After this, she puts a camera in her son's room. And after some time, when she checks his recording, she is completely convinced that this is not her son. She takes the camera and goes to the husband of the old lady. He refuses to see the footage of the camera, because his wife had told him some things that he doesn't want to see. Because he doesn't want his son and his wife to be the same. That's why he breaks the camera. Sarah comes back home. She tells her son to play his favorite game. Her son doesn't play with her. Sarah says that he is not her son. You are definitely a bad person. After which, his son picks him up and hits him on the wall. This is how Sarah gets unconscious. After a while, when Sarah gets conscious, she is outside the house. Her son is digging a hole in the ground in front of her. After digging a hole, he wanted to kill Sarah. But then he gets unconscious because Sarah had mixed a medicine for his unconsciousness. Sarah gets unconscious. Sarah takes the child to the basement. After which, she sees his face through a piece of glass. And when she sees his face through the glass, she gets scared because it was the face of a demon. Then her son, that is, the demon, comes to his senses. He attacks her, but Sarah somehow runs away from there, locks him up and leaves. Sarah goes to that hole, that pit in the forest. She is sure that her son is somewhere here. She goes inside that pit. And when she goes inside, she starts to get crushed under the ground. Inside there is a tunnel where Sarah finds her son who is still alive. Sarah wants to take her son away from here, but there are many creatures here who bring someone's family's child here. And they take the form of that child and join her family. After that, they kill the whole family. The old woman had recognized that her son was actually a demon. That's why she killed the demon with her husband. The whole town thought that the old woman and her husband had killed their son. That's why no one in town liked them. Although they killed the demon, they never reached their real son. Just like Sarah reached her son, Sarah is trying to get out of the tunnel with her son. And as she is about to get out of the tunnel, a demon grabs her hand. And slowly, she takes Sarah's form. Sarah attacks him with a torch and somehow brings out her son from the tunnel. After which, she goes inside her house and takes out the keys to her car. Although the demon on her son's face is still locked in the basement, she bravely brings the key and burns the entire house. After which she takes her son from the car and leaves the town. After those days, it is shown that Sarah has started her job again. Her life has become completely normal. She sees that her son is riding a cycle. She takes pictures of her son. Furthermore, she has installed many mirrors in the house. because she still has doubts that those creatures are demons, will try to reach his son again. And if they find his son and his son's identity, then they will recognize the creatures in the mirror, because no creature can hide his real face in the mirror. And with this film ends here. Hopefully you like this story.